Good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law here in Kirk's Law Corner. March 30th, 2026, and another month is gone. Telling you, folks, time is just flying by here. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but sure seems to be going pretty fast here. Let's see, who do we have out here tonight? We're on Telegram. Wendy, Ralph, good to see you too, and Liberty and Justice, Kathy Watson, good to see you, dear. Michael Casper, good to see you, brother. JPC5, Jim Valentine, and Diesel D's, good to see you, brother. I know people chomping in the bit to hear about the sentencing hearing. I know I made the update there on Telegram, so hopefully most of y'all got that, but just want to make sure that everybody knows that I was sentenced to what was it, 90 days jail with 80 days suspended, 4 days credit for time served, 6 days with all options, so I can do community service or what have we, or work release or anything like that, or I can just go do 6 straight days. But I had already previously filed my motion to stay the execution of the sentence pending the outcome of my appeal, which the judge did grant. Now I just checked the docket, and he hasn't done an order for that. So maybe he's waiting for me to submit my order. So I printed out my order, and I'll get it down there. So originally I was pulled over for not having plates on my car, and because I failed to identify, he arrested me for resisting and obstructing. And they played the game with, failure to identify is a delay, which constitutes obstructing. And I objected to the jury instructions. I had my own proposed jury instructions. The judge denied those. Went with his own jury instructions. I objected to those, and he denied my objection, and I objected to those denials on for the record. So I created my record, but this judge knows, because again, for those that don't know, but this judge was called in at 8:30 p.m. the night before trial. Was asked to come in and preside over this case, to take over Tollefson's caseload. 8:30 p.m. the night before trial. So they kind of dumped it on his plate. And it seems kind of weird that Judge Tollefson would just all of a sudden the night before not be able to preside over the case. But the judge swears up and down that his jury instructions were proper, blah, 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 blah. He denied my renewed motion for judgment of acquittal. But, again, it's all documented in the record. So, on appeal, this is going to be a brutal appeal, because there's so many errors in the trial court. But before trial, the judge set aside the driving without privileges, which was later discovered after he ran my identification and all that stuff. But this is a corrupt system, and I've given notice. I did my motion to dismiss. I did my motion to suppress. And there are multiple errors in denial of the motion to dismiss and motion to suppress. Aside from the errors from the actual trial. A lot of people don't understand that when you file an appeal, it's only a review. This is actually a writ of review from the common law to review the record for errors. So this is where you have to create your record, your paperwork, because that's what they look at. They review the paperwork from the record and any hearings, right? So that's the main part of what an appeal is about, is you have to point out where the errors were, and then they have to review it and go, oh, well, yeah, or yay or nay, or we agree or disagree. And then, the thing is there's so many things that I challenged: jurisdiction, personal, subject, all the whole 9 yards there. And you're going to honestly try to tell me that not one of those things was legitimate? Yeah. So the other part was, with the court costs and fees and the fine, it equaled exactly $300, which is exactly, my bond, so bond forfeiture. My cash bond, they took my $300 cash bond, which is pretty typical. But the judge knows. He's like, gonna have to grant this motion to stay, because the prosecutor was trying to hammer me big time. Oh, 365 days jail and 2 years probation and all this crap, and tried to explain how I'm a threat to the security and safety of society because of the public, because I'm driving around out there without insurance and without a license. How is that? How does that make everybody fear, and how is that a threat of violence? So, I obviously rebutted all of that and was like, this seems a little excessive, considering the last one was, $300 fine and credit for 2 days jail. Yeah, actually, the judge did do to answer the question out here, Lee Rose out on YouTube, about whether or not the judge put it on the record, his ruling of jurisdictional challenge. Absolutely. Yeah, he did his memorandum of law and order denying my motion to dismiss and motion to suppress. And that was the other thing, is about the failure to appear, the 2 failures to appear. And I explained that to the judge. I said, according to the denial of my motion to dismiss, motion to suppress on the lack of personal jurisdiction, was the only reason why the court had personal jurisdiction was I continued to show up. So I was testing the theory that if I didn't show up, that they would lose jurisdiction. And lo and behold, he issued a warrant for my arrest. So I was just testing the theory, and which will be, dealt with on appeal. And he's just kind of like, oh, yeah, okay. I'm like, other than that, I haven't had a failure to appear in any significant recent history. I'm a flight risk. And the judge's like, he's not a flight risk. The other thing was, I was very disrespectful and disrespectful, and the judge is like, I watched the video. He wasn't disrespectful at all. And he was very respectful here in court in front of me. I said, he even said, this is the thing about judges' notes. See, a lot of people don't know about this one. Judges write notes in the case file, which you have a right to request a copy of, by the way. But that was what the judge had mentioned. I don't see any notes in the record of being disrespectful, and he wasn't disrespectful for me. And, at the end of trial there, jury trial, called me a lawyer and looked right straight at me and thanked us for, looking me straight in the eyes, being very professional here today. And that was it at the end of trial. So this judge knows. Then I know some stuff, and he knows that I'm attacking the whole system, right? what little bit of a chance he's had to look at all that, my paperwork. But he knows something's up, that I ain't no dummy. And I ain't falling into their traps of, oh, you're one of them sovereign citizen stuff. They didn't dare bring that crap up. But it's gonna be very interesting on appeal, and I am also going to work on taking it down for everybody with my own independent action, a petition for declaratory judgment and injunctive relief on the whole driver's license, the titling, and registry are private property. Okay, that's in this case. I already did. Imagine that. Blackstone, citing Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England, those three primary absolute rights of the laws of nature: the right of personal security, the right of personal liberty, and the right of private property. And given that I had discovered that State versus Clark case of an Idaho Supreme Court ruling in 2019, which right in my original paperwork, clear back in March of 2025, I cited Section 289 of Blackstone's Commentaries on Laws of England from Book 1, which is exactly the same exact section that the Idaho Supreme Court went to. That was their first source in looking for the history behind the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 17, the reciprocal of Fourth Amendment in the Idaho Constitution. What does it mean? What is the rule of law? So this is exactly what I've been trying to tell you guys, is the fact that they have changed their standard of review to get away from the history of statutes and case law and to the actual history of law and tradition. They're eliminating that two-pronged test, which is what the Supreme Court of the United States of America did in the New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin case in what was that? I want to say it was June of 2022, or was that June of 2023? It's kind of being a blur. But yeah, it's I lost my train of thought there because I was reading messages there. But you know, this it's that's what that's right. They were going off of the number one citing source of law, history of law. That their go-to number one source is Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. Now, this was in Idaho in 2019. That was in the Supreme Court of the United States, and I think it was actually June of 2022. But this is why I keep saying it would behoove us to read Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, because that's what they're citing from, number one source. And then the secondary source was Stephan in his commentaries on the criminal law, the history of the criminal law of England. And I believe that was 1883 when he wrote and published that. So, this is going to be good for all of us. And, you know, somebody ought to do it. Like Carl Miller used to say, you know, somebody ought to do something about that. Be a somebody. Do something. Well, I'm taking his advice and I'm doing something about it. The mere fact that a license is seeking permission to do a thing that otherwise would be illegal. You cannot convert a right into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee to it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. When you read, and I highly encourage people to read these cases, as you will discover, as I have, in Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, they even reference commerce, that this is not a commercial activity, that they're not engaged in commerce. Meaning, unless they can prove that they're engaged in commerce, they have no jurisdiction. because that's the only real thing they have to regulate. They can't regulate our rights, and that's what Murdoch versus Pennsylvania was about, was attempting to convert a right into a privilege, license it, and attach a fee to it, because they were not engaged in commerce. So, that's the first one. Miranda versus Arizona. There shall be no rulemaking or legislation that would abrogate a right. So, double whammy. Aside from Miranda versus Arizona about the right to remain silent, and at any time during an investigation, because that's what this was an investigative stop, right? Which is unlawful and unconstitutional based on the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 17 of the Idaho Constitution. You can't make an arrest without a warrant for a misdemeanor. Only for felonies or breaches of the peace. That's it. That's what the rule of law is. That's what they discovered in the history of the common law. So, the fact is they know. And see, I called Theodore Tollefson out, the magistrate in this case who was supposed to be presiding over the trial, and that was March 26th on the previous Monday. That was a Thursday. On the Monday before that was the status conference before trial, and I had filed another motion to dismiss challenging jurisdiction again. And I brought up the State versus Clark case and was like, hey, I was reading the case, and it says right there at the beginning that Theodore Tollefson represented the Attorney General's office for the state of Idaho in that case. And I asked him specifically, point blank, are you the same Theodore Tollefson that argued that case before the Idaho Supreme Court? He freaked out. He didn't want to answer the question. He didn't want to admit or deny whether that was him or not. And I have a feeling that's the reason why he's like, I'm out. Because he knows. He knows. It was him. And he was told by the Idaho Supreme Court in that case that you cannot make an arrest without a warrant for a misdemeanor. Period. That's the rule of law. So that means, what is that? That's gonna set us free. When I do this, folks, this is gonna shut down all these unlawful arrests. And it's also gonna vacate all these cases all throughout history of every single case that they made an arrest without a warrant. So get prepared, folks. It may take some time, but I'm making it happen. Because I love America and I love my fellow men that much. So, definitely would love some support financially, because this is going to get expensive, filing all the paperwork and doing all this stuff, and it's going to take a serious amount of time. So, donation links are in the description section there under everything. Buy Me a Coffee is the number one there. Where even with cryptocurrency, if you got cryptocurrency and you want to donate, you can donate through Buy Me a Coffee with your cryptocurrency. I personally don't have any, but they will exchange that into doll hairs. But Fix It Fast, thank you, brother. Wendy usually does that too. Both of you do. But looks like James Skin or Fix It Fast, we're on the same man out there, sharing those links to my donations. You can also subscribe to my Patreon. Patreon link is down there as well. Don't forget about the toll and roll stuff. That's in the works still right now. There's some movement going on there. I can't really discuss those particulars right this minute, but when we can, we'll give an update on those. So good to see you out there, Mark and Mark Bond out here on Rumble, and Karen, Ross Marley. Who else we got hanging out over there? There's all caps false prophet. I don't know. Munson, are you on here yet tonight? Munson 58. I don't see you, brother. Yep, absolutely right. All caps false prophet. Converting this into commerce, the money changers always win. The thing is this is human trafficking, the debt slave, the peonage side. And this is where we expose, or I get to expose, that this is all Roman civil law, which is enforced by bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. How they've fundamentally altered our form of government, altered the fundamental law from the common law to Roman civil law. I have the proof of this in the 11th legislative session for the territory of Idaho in 1881, the Code of Civil Procedure Act. And it's a dead giveaway in Section 3 of the Act. It specifically states that the rule of the common law, the statutes and derogation thereof must be in strict compliance, does not apply here, and the code is the law. All orchestrated and perpetrated by the bar. So, that'll be in my motion for declaratory judgment to declare that act unlawful and unconstitutional as altering the fundamental law, like it says in the Declaration of Independence, subjecting us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our law. Well, what is our law? What do they mean by unacknowledged by our law and foreign to our Constitution? And subjecting us to their pretended acts of legislation. I'll be damned. I've said this over and over and over and over again. This has happened many times throughout history. This is not the first time in history. It's gone on way too long this time. We're talking, essentially, Idaho 1881. But this actually really started, and Brother Rob found this even before what I had found in 1845, New York and then California. I believe it was as early as like 1818 that they tried to, or they started implementing the code again, Roman civil law. And nobody's done anything about it. But it got ramped up in 1845. And I believe that, right? 1861, the Lieber Code, right? So, good to see you out there, James, on YouTube. Call it what it is. It's Roman civil law. Blackstone talks about it. That Stephan guy in his History of the Criminal Law of England, he calls it Roman law. Okay? Well, Mark, actually the code was before 1873. The Lieber Code was 1861. And I have found where it, in New York and then followed by California, it was done in 1845. So, I agree with you, James, out on YouTube that it is a satanic Luciferian code, but I found it was in 1845, folks. Mark and Karen out there, you're saying 1873 for California. It was 1845 by my research. So, doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a foreign jurisdiction. And when we read Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 under law, comma, civil, it exposes the truth about the Roman civil law. The ancient civil law of the Roman Empire. And it is opposed to the laws of nature, the law of nations, and the law that's common to all, the common law. So, that's a fact. Blackstone talks about it, the Stephan guy talks about it, that there's, a clear distinction between Roman civil law and the common law and feudal law. So, it's definitely a satanic cult. I'll say that, based on a comment that was out here on Rumble for We Are the People. It's an international death cult as well. Yeah, it's a satanic cult. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Yep, yeah, you got Code of Ethics, Code of Professional Conduct. You've got Uniform Commercial Code, United States Code, Code of Federal Regulations, Idaho Code. It's all code. It's all Roman civil law. And yep, August 21st, 1878 is when the American Bar Association was authorized to be created. So, James, yes, here on YouTube, the War of 1812 was to destroy the records of the bill, well, the constitutional amendment, the original Article the 13th. They were trying to destroy those records because it had already passed through Congress, essentially, and was submitted to the states for its approbation and ratification. And that would have, if that would have happened like it should have, we'd be a lot better off today. No bar. None. Yet here we are today, battling this all out. And the fact is the reality here is these bar members have infiltrated our entire form of government. They're deeply embedded into the legislature to help control the legislature. And then there's a member of the bar sitting behind every executive agency, at least one of them sitting over there in the corner. So they've infiltrated the executive branch, the entire executive branch. And then basically the entire judicial branch is all ran by members of the bar. So which branch of government can you go to get justice? They've got all three branches covered. And then see, the trickery there is with the Administrative Procedures Act, which I believe was 1946 in Congress. It was all orchestrated, perpetrated, and presented by the bar. And that is what transferred power from the legislative branch to the executive branch under what they call rulemaking, and I happen to look under the Administrative Procedures Act, what's a rule? It's a law. So the executive branch has the power to make law, and these unelected bureaucrats, well, who is it? They're members of the bar. Imagine that. That's all I'm saying, folks. Is I'm just sharing you the facts, the truth. That's what happened. That's why we are where we're at. And the more people we wake up to this truth about the Roman civil law and the bar, Administrative Procedures Act, these facts. Right, James? Knowledge is power. Absolutely. We need to take back our power. All political power is inherent in the people. We have the right to alter, reform, or abolish anything and any time we deem it necessary. But that's inherent in the people. We've got to reassemble the people. So, right, Karen, about them shall be no titles of nobility, right? No nobility or honor, your honor. Why do they always call them your honor? Why do they wear black robes? I'm telling you right now, that's symbolism from the Roman Catholic Church. Ecclesiastical law. But it's all under Roman civil law. So, yeah, it's just a matter of the people, enough of us coming together and doing something about it. I know, Michael, Casper over here on Telegram, there's so many that just won't hear it. I know. So, the ones that are receiving this message, this knowledge, thank you for being here. I hope that you take and learn from me. And do something about it in your local area or even your state level. So it is what it is, folks, and it's not going to change unless we do something about it. Right, James? Yeah, comment out here on YouTube from James is fight like me, peacefully, then we win, and that's what we're supposed to do. Blackstone even talks about in his commentaries there in book 1, right after he's talking about all the laws of nature and all that stuff, and he says for a vindication of these rights, we're supposed to petition the judicial branch, petition the legislature, then we take up arms. Gee. It's almost like that's kind of what Article 4, Section 4 says on application of the legislature or the executive. The legislature cannot be convened. So I'm working on the petitioning in the judicial, but once I get this all drafted up, it's all going to go bam bam at the same time. It's going to go in the judicial and the legislature at the same time. And then going to have to CC this over to Trump, the executive, which is the commander-in-chief. And now was the time to do this. Karen, this actually is a 4th of July shirt. Those are fireworks exploding. exploding fireworks. And I kind of wore this tonight because about what I'm about to share with you guys. Wait till you see Kirk's Afro Man flag suit. Ross Marley, what are you talking about? Yep, okay, you got it, Karen. Flowers, maybe fireworks. Yep, you got it. I didn't see your message till just now. Um, oh. Well, you were, Ross Marley, you were saying, wait till you see Kirk's Afro Man flag suit. I'm like, I don't have a flag suit. But, oh no. Krautwolf, uh, totally disagree, dude. Now, Trump is a wartime president, yes, but the whole the whole the whole regime is being taken down worldwide, and this is a military operation. Before Trump, right? They were going to do a coup on Obama, and we would have had a bloody civil war, world war, had Trump not stepped up to the plate. Now, in my mind, Trump is kind of just a front man. I mean, he is pulling his weight and doing what he needs to do, but it's the military behind Trump that's actually doing a lot of this stuff, right? Trump is only one man. So, anybody who doesn't quite comprehend this stuff and how the military works and the history of the military before the Constitution and how that works, read the Law of Nations. Read up on the Merchant Marines that was actually created in 1553, long before America. So, make no mistake, the world corruption is being taken down. Banking cartel, the drug cartel, and I'm talking about the pharmaceutical drug industry. This all takes time, folks. This has taken decades for it to get where it's at, to get built. Okay? The stuff isn't going to be taken down overnight. The wheels of justice move really slow, because remember, these people know due process of law. They know what their rights are. So if we make a mistake in, prosecuting them, they'll get off. So everything has to be done perfectly, or they'll get off. Okay? So, this again, this is a military operation. This isn't just Trump. Okay? So, many things are going on around the world, and I've put this stuff out as it was coming out. Executive Order 13818, blocking the property of those involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption worldwide. Okay, that was December 20th of 2017. That was the kickoff of the World War. And really what that is civil asset forfeiture, that they're seizing. And if you read that executive order, he lists certain names in there in Saudi Arabia. And then we go, what happened in Saudi Arabia right after that executive order? I mean, those are the facts. So what's going on is the going in and taking down corrupt governmental regimes and instituting new government, holding elections, and then doing a treaty of peace. I mean, that's just what's happened over and over and over and over again. So, I don't know, I don't know what else to tell you folks that might be new here, but is that that's what's going on. Has been since December 20th, and it was actually 2 federal directives from the military clear back even in 2015. So, like I said, this is before Trump, this military operation. And technically speaking, it even goes clear back to JFK in 1964. It's taken a while to get where we're at. Okay? All of this stuff didn't just happen overnight, right? They didn't just wake up one morning and say, "Okay, we're gonna do this." No, this has to have been strategically planned. They got to figure out who's who and how to get them. So it's just, the wheels of justice move slow. It's just a thing. That's just the way it is. So people wanting to believe lamestream media, fake news out there. Haven't you learned yet? It's all fake. It's all propaganda. How many times has Trump come out and said that there's actors? This is central casting. There's a lot of them that already been arrested, executed, gone, sentenced. They're just gone. A lot of actors out there. Okay? So it's just a matter of time. Well, making comments like this. Yeah, well, he took out leaders, then schools. They want the VOC ethers first and foremost. How do you know that? You got firsthand knowledge of that, or are you just watching the fake news? This is the problem. No firsthand knowledge. Just like the Epstein files. And it was brought up in one of the congressional hearings on this. And, oh yeah, Trump's guilty, here it is, piece of paper. And the representative or senator or whoever it was like, well, that's a piece of paper. Where's the evidence? Where's the witness to testify to that? Again, rules of evidence. You got to have a witness. You got to have the accuser. Just because somebody writes it on a piece of paper doesn't make it true. And if you don't think that they've messed with the Epstein files and doctored those and, wrote up some, changed words, verbiage, the reality is the ones that have come forth and testified about who inappropriately touched them and abused them and, satanic rituals and all that stuff, have all cleared Trump and said, no, he was never involved in any of that stuff. So not one yet has come forward and said, yeah, Trump did that to me. He was there. He was part of it. People don't understand that that's how the rules of evidence work. And again, people seem to think, well, it's in the Epstein files. It's true. If it was that simple, a lot of them would already be arrested. That's not how that works. That's not how due process of law works, and that's not how the rules of evidence work. You know, we talk about how they violate our right to due process of law all the time, right? Don't you think that they would also? Like I said, they know. They know their rights. They know due process. They know the process that's due to them. They know that you can't use that crap as evidence in case it get dismissed so freaking quick. So that's the key to all this, folks, is not, knowledge is power. Well, they have it. How come we aren't doing it? And then here's the other thing under rules of evidence. You can't disclose any evidence before a trial. That's right. Well, Krautwolf, yeah, what evidence? Exactly. We can't be everywhere all the time. Patterns emerge once you install cameras, show up on night footage. That's still, again, where's the evidence? Okay, and then who's going to testify to that, placing that camera there and recording it? Somebody's got to testify. That's right. You do have to hand over your evidence before trial. That's right. You have to disclose all of your evidence prior to trial. That's part of the rules of procedure and rules of evidence. That's how that works. But I'm telling you right now, a piece of paper that says, oh yeah, Trump did this or so-and-so did this, that's not evidence. I mean, and again, how is that evidence that Trump is the one that's blowing up schools? Come on. We're at war, folks. And unfortunately, war is a brutal thing. And there are going to be casualties of war. But to make the claim that Trump bombed the schools, it's not how that works. Right, Mark? We're giving the country back to you, the people. Promises made, promises kept. So, well, without further ado, I want to go over here to this whitehouse.gov. And I'm going to show you some things here. There's a presidential message on the anniversary of Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. This is a White House briefing statement. This was March 23rd. 251 years ago. Let's just get this even bigger. There we go. 251 years ago, as the 13 colonies stood on the precipice of revolution, the great Patrick Henry rose to address the Second Virginia Convention. Now, notice again, this is the Virginia Convention, to declare words that have echoed throughout the halls of history. Give me liberty or give me death. Henry's epic speech rang out at a decisive hour in our nation's journey, stirring his fellow Virginians to cast off the heavy hand of British tyranny and take up arms in pursuit of the righteous cause of American independence. Gee, I wonder, is Trump taking up arms? Defending American independence? In the spring of 1775, more than 100 of Virginia's most devoted patriots gathered at Henrico Parish Church, united by a solemn purpose to debate Henry's resolutions to arm their local militias, and organize a defense of their homes against the British Empire. As tensions between colonists and their imperial rulers continued to rise, many delegates still harbored great doubts as to whether armed conflict was the best course of action. But they had already petitioned in the most humblest terms and only been met with repeated injuries. Henry's defiant stand ignited a movement that would later give birth to our nation. See, America is the nation, not a country. It's a nation. Each state, what we consider a nation state, independent sovereign nation state, is actually countries. See the Law of Nations. I believe it's Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 211. Basically, a nation is composed of all of the countries. And North America is the continent. But America is a nation. You know, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence, we are reminded that the blessings we inherit were secured by those early patriots who refused to surrender the cause of freedom at its most perilous hour. Their bravery built a republic grounded in the conviction that liberty is a sacred, God-given right, and it must always be safeguarded by a resolute people ready and willing to fight and die for it. Through the words of Patrick Henry, the earliest Americans found their voice and realized the strength of their resolve. More than 2.5 centuries later, his words still call to us to live with bold and faithful vision, to cherish the freedom entrusted to our care, and to carry forward the work of preserving the proud heritage of this great country. So then he switches to a country. Should be nation. As we mark the 251st anniversary of this legendary speech, we honor the enduring patriotic spirit he set in motion. And as we begin the next 2.5 centuries of our national story, we renew our devotion to advancing a brighter, more radiant, and more glorious American future. Trump isn't kidding when he's talking about make America great again. Right? 250 years of slavery, right, Mark? Now, let's go back here to the March 20th. Another briefing. Oh, proclamation. Ooh, this is a proclamation. Our nation proudly commemorates the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's address to the Second Virginia Convention, a seminal moment in our great American story and a fateful turning point in America's epic struggle for independence. On March 23rd, 1775, Patrick Henry rose to the pulpit of St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia, to speak those immortal words that remain... why did you gotta do that? How do I get rid of that? Okay, words that remain etched upon every American heart. Give me liberty or give me death. In the wake of escalating tensions between the Patriots and the Redcoats, Henry delivered his stirring address before more than 100 delegates, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and many of the statesmen who would go on to sign the Declaration of Independence. Following the bloody Boston Massacre and the British Parliament's authoritarian imposition of the Intolerable Acts, which closed the Boston Harbor and stripped New England colonists of their right to self-govern, American leaders deliberated whether to continue their pursuit of peace or as a final recourse to take up arms in the rebellion. With British tyranny on the rise and American confidence in retreat, the Second Virginia Convention assembled. Patrick Henry, a respected lawyer who had recently served as a delegate in the Continental Congress, arrived at the convention with one goal in mind: to galvanize militiamen into securing our inestimable rights and liberties from those further violations with which they are threatened. Some members cautioned against such decisive action, insisted that peaceful reconciliation was still possible, but as Henry listened, he grew more impatient. A Baptist minister who observed the proceedings later recalled that he had an unearthly fire burning in his eyes. Overcome with righteous indignation, Henry rose from his seat with no notes in hand, boldly beseeching his fellow Virginians, "If we wish to be free, we must fight." Telling you folks, we have to fight. At a moment when America's fate hung in the balance, Henry's words sparked daring action in the souls of patriots, fortified the cause of freedom, and set America on the path to ultimate triumph over forces of tyranny and oppression. I mean, read the Declaration of Independence, folks, and tell me that we're not back to the same stuff. By a narrow margin, the Second Virginia Convention passed the resolution to form a militia, the first critical step to independence. It is not now easy to say what we should have done without Patrick Henry. Thomas Jefferson later wrote, "He was before us all in maintaining the spirit of the Revolution." As we approach the 250th anniversary of our nation's independence on July 4th, 2026, we look to Patrick Henry, son of the frontier, the first and sixth governor of Virginia, an unflinching advocate for American independence, and a true man of his moment. Today, we invoke his courage, we honor his legacy, and we fearlessly summon the spirit of 1776 to build a future that we will be proud to impart on our children. Like Patrick Henry and the giants of American liberty who came before us, now is our time to ring that great bell of American freedom and to propel our nation into a new and radiant golden age. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 23rd, 2025 as a day in celebration of the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's speech to the Second Virginia Convention. So this was actually March of 2025, not 2026. Yeah, this was March 20th of 2025. So, a year ago. But this one here, the one we were just reading, this was 2026. March 23rd, 2026. So the 1 year, right, anniversary of that proclamation. So, it just things like this, that are telling us the story, facts from history. Now, what's this? What's this? Save America? What, why we're here? What's Save America? Oh yeah, I thought it was going to be a more. Now let's see. Where was I at? I was news, presidential actions. There was establishing the task force to eliminate fraud. Toll and roll? What's going on there? Let's see. Let's go to number 2 here. Something just doesn't seem right here because I think it was actually. Combating cybercrime, fraud, predatory schemes against American citizens, continue the suspension of duty-free de minimis treatment for all countries. Yeah. Yeah, this one here, kind of weird. Promoting the national defense by ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides. I don't know why that one, but there's got to be a reason behind it. And this was February 6th, protecting the national security and welfare of the United States and its citizens from criminal actors and other public safety threats. You look at this stuff and it's like, how do you say that Trump's not doing something? Right, James? That Trump was dragged through these de facto courts too. He knows. Oh, there's a Munson 58. Good to see you. I noticed that you weren't here at the beginning. Just so you know, when you go back to rewatch, you'll see that. But folks, there's just so much going on worldwide. It's so hard to try and. Oops, I thought maybe it would pull down. Oh, that's right. March 7th, commitment to countering cartel criminal activity. Now, what actually kind of brought me here earlier today was I keep seeing this thing about the Trump's name's going to be on the new money or something like that. And that's what I actually came here for. And I didn't. I could not find anything on it. Supposedly done on March 26th. Nothing. This one here, the new White House app delivers unparalleled access to the Trump administration. You have it right here. You can go to the whitehouse.gov and see all this stuff here. Did a little bit of background research on this, and some computer geeks out there broke down the code on the app and found out that it's a tracking. There's tracking your every movement, every 4.5 minutes on an Android and every 5 minutes on an Apple phone. If you have the app, but it'll tell you that it's not using your location services, but deeply embedded into the program, it most certainly is. Now, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. Either way, I don't like to be tracked in my every movement by my phone. So, because of that, I won't download and install the app. I'll just continue to come here, or the Federal Register is where I typically go. But that's my take on that. But free to do what you want. It is there. Well, all I can say is I see nothing on the White House website relating to Trump talking about putting his name on any bill. Okay? Signing any of the bills, and the Secretary of State. So, it's not here. That's what was said. Now, here was a different one here that was brought up. Promises made, or promise made, promise kept. Since taking office, President Donald Trump and his administration have secured the release of 105 detained Americans held abroad, delivering on their unwavering commitment to leave no American behind. Again, we're at war, and he's trying to get people back. Dennis Coyle is back on U.S. soil and reunited with his family after more than a year in Taliban captivity. There's... Oh, just one. Okay. I figured this would be a lot bigger. But... Oh, so he keeps a few of them, right? So, I know, isn't that kind of confusing there, Mark and others, about Tina Peters? We can go into all these other countries, these other nations, and retrieve people, bring them back home. But we can't do it here in America. We can't go in and grab Tina Peters and send her home. I'm just blown away. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it just boggles my mind on that one. Oh, Bobby Hall, good to see you out there on Facebook. Just over there listening, huh? No comments tonight. Anyways, it's just blows my mind on that particular one there of how she can be still locked up when all she was doing was exposing um, election fraud. That's a kind of a thought that crossed my mind over here. Seriously sarcastic on Telegram says if we got Tina out, which I wholeheartedly agree with, she'd have to be put in protective custody so the Blue Line thugs don't storm her house again. Yeah. Reading some of the other comments there about the Federal Reserve and stuff. Trump already moved the Federal Reserve and the IRS under the Department of Treasury. I believe that was in 2019. That's been done a long time ago, guys. A lot of things are in the works, right? And it's, again, the wheels of justice move really slow sometimes. So, um, you know, my thoughts again, and I'll keep reiterating this is this July 4th, the 250th anniversary, July 4th, 2026. I think this is going to be the new independence. Now, I just saw something earlier, and again, I don't follow the Q boards or any of that stuff, so I'm not denying that stuff. But what I am saying is I don't follow it. I follow this stuff right here. Executive orders, proclamations, memorandums, briefings. I listen to what Trump is saying and telling us. I read, the factual stuff. This is evidence right here. Okay. But something about April and how certain places are going to be closed down April 20th. Now, if that's true, and if what's being said there about the financial system, now, I'm already well aware of the QFS, the quantum financial system. Okay? And in fact, Tony Franquito, who was in contact with quite often back in the day there, he knew about this stuff way better than I did. And he was informed at his bank that they had in fact switched over to the quantum financial system well over a year ago. So this stuff's in the works and has been in the works for some time now. It just takes time, right? This is, how do we do that? How do we just switch currency and switch a complete financial system worldwide? It's not that simple. But if there's anybody out there who seems to think that it is that simple, please, by all means, come forward. I mean, I'm a highly intelligent man, but I wouldn't even begin to try to, figure that one out by myself. Uh, you know, good question out here, Sadie Cooper on YouTube. Isn't Tina Peters under state jurisdiction? Sure. Trump is federal jurisdiction. Is that why she's still in prison? Well, I believe Trump, as commander-in-chief, is above all state governors. Yep. So, like I said, if we can go into any other nation, state, country in the world and retrieve these people and bring them home, why can't we do it right here on American soil? Article 4, Section 4, guaranteed Republican form of government to protect us from foreign invasion and domestic violence, internal insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the Constitution, and war against the people. So that is a power that is properly belongs to the executive branch. But that may be just part of the excuse and all of that good stuff. But it could be a setup too, right? The whole Tina Peters things could be a setup for all those involved in putting Tina Peters in jail. And again, you have to gather the evidence of who did what, where, and when. And you have to follow due process of law to get them. Because if you miss one step and you violate their rights, you lose. Because again, I keep telling you guys this, they know about due process of law. They know each and every single step, inside and out, backwards, forwards, upside down, and inside out. And if you miss a step, motion to suppress, motion to dismiss for violating rights. If you don't think that they're that smart, you underestimate our enemy. They know. That thought has actually crossed my mind. Seriously Sarcastic makes a comment over here on Telegram. Tina might already be safe and not in jail anymore, but keeping her in jail for the media purposes and exposure. Yeah. So, it's who knows, right? Who actually knows? First-hand knowledge, whether Tina Peters is still locked up in a jail cell somewhere, or is she in protective custody somewhere? Very possible. Yep. James, the devil is in the details, absolutely. Not everything is as it seems or appears. Never know. This stuff just, some things happen behind the scenes that we don't know about. And the mainstream media will keep putting it out that way. I mean, for the most part, every American and people around the world should already know fake news, propaganda. They lie. I mean, again, I was putting that stuff out before Trump even thought about running for office, I was calling them fake news. Went down that rabbit hole back in, I think that was 2014. Discovered there was like, 115, 116, whatever, mainstream media outlets worldwide, and all controlled by like 9 people. Think about that for a minute. All of the news worldwide has been controlled by 6 or 9 people, whichever it was there. And again, I was putting that out in 2014. That was before I was doing lives. That was just on my Facebook page and wherever. So, I'm well aware of fake news for a long time. But on the Tina Peters things, again, it could be just as simple as they're trying to gather the evidence on exactly who was involved in going after Tina Peters. Who submitted false evidence? Who made false claims? Where is the evidence to support the claims against Tina Peters? I know, James, right? We're at war. Yeah. This is a worldwide war, folks. Revolutionary war. And it's not like a World War One or World War Two. Those those were all set up. This is a worldwide revolutionary war. Liberation. Liberating all of mankind worldwide. Now, here's the other key part of this. I'm not saying that we should sit around and do nothing and wait for the Trump administration to take care of all this for us. I'm not calling him our savior. He's just a man like the rest of us who, in my mind, decided to, take a stand and stand up for the people and do what needs to be done. He's just one man. He's not a politician, and he has his own money. He didn't need to do any of this. Remember that. And think about that long and hard. Not a politician, not a career politician. Very wealthy, had his own money, didn't need to do this. And he's never taken a dime for payment for being a president. So, those facts, just those simple facts right there, should raise some questions in your mind about what the heck is he doing in there then? What is he really doing? And I'll put this out there again. Any man who seems to think that they could do a better job than Trump, by all means, step up to the plate. You think you can take on this world corruption and survive for as long as he has so far? I'm aware of several attempts on his life. I'll give you $2,000 if you can do it. Oh no, he's talking to Karen. Never mind. I'll do gasket. What? Oh, you guys are talking about engines and stuff. All right. But, uh, yep. Right? A Munson 58 out here on Rumble, and I've said this before. We must have a frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles. You know, how many people are aware? I mean, I know some of my hardcore followers and supporters here, especially those in Wednesday Night Workshop, know about the laws of nature. And I see how hard it is for these folks to, you know, I have tested them. And we'll do it again right now. Test time, students, followers, friends. What are the three primary absolute rights of the laws of nature? Do you know? Do you have that knowledge? Do you know what the three basic primary, absolute rights of the laws of nature are? Because if you don't, you're at a complete loss. You don't even have the fundamental principles of law. And technically speaking, I keep skipping over the very first one. So there's technically 4 primary absolute rights to the laws of nature. And for my students from Wednesday Night Workshop, I'll give it to you. It's free will, which Blackstone talks about in his commentaries prior to enumerating those specific 3. But I'm not seeing any of my okay. Yeah, one of my students over here on Telegram. Good job, Wendy. There's one. No. Hey, Mark and Karen over there, you guys paying attention? Well, so the correct answer is personal security, personal liberty, and private property. Yes, I'm aware that they talk about in the Declaration of Independence life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's among these rights is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Among. So the 3 primary absolute rights from the laws of nature, again, is personal security. And there's 5 different elements. 5 different elements to personal security. It's one of them. Rights to self-defense, the right to choose our own health, right? And then personal liberty, which consists in the power of locomotion, of changing situations. And that right, well, none of these rights can be deprived without the law of the land or a jury. Not a statute, not a regulation. Law of the land. Right? Bills of Rights, Declaration of Rights, the Constitution. So, uh, private property, the right to acquire, possess, and the free use of our private property. None of those rights can be converted into a privileged license and attach a fee to it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania already covered that one. Well, seriously sarcastic, you would be incorrect. Knowledge is power. You really need to know these rights. You need to be able to articulate them and cite them. Like I said, it would behoove everybody to read Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England, because Blackstone enumerates those three primary absolute rights along as well as the free will. It's in the very beginning of book 1. And I've covered them on here extensively a few times, and in my Wednesday night workshop class extensively. So again, it's personal security, personal liberty, and private property are the three primary absolute rights. So, I'm kicking myself in the butt because, and I've said this before, that I'd actually found Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England several years ago and had it downloaded in PDF form. And I was reluctant to read it because I'm like, oh, well, that's England and it's blah, 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 Not realizing, I never even opened it up and took a peek at the table of contents. Imagine that. But I'm kicking myself in the butt for not reading it sooner. But when I found the New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin case, and I read the opinion of the Supreme Court of the United States of America here, and oh my gosh, they went straight to Blackstone and cited as an authoritative source relating to the Second Amendment now, about the right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. They cited that section right there in Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England under personal security. The right of self-defense comes from nature. That's what they said. Supreme Court of the United States of America. So, again, I keep seeing this more and more in cases. They're going to Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England first. It's the number one primary source. So, again, it would behoove us to read it. And yep, out there on avalon.law.yale, you can read Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England right there online. Thank you, Wendy, for putting that out there. But knowledge is power, folks. And I'm telling you, if they are citing it as a number one source, a number one go-to, why are we not reading it? Mark, Judge Joe Brown is incorrect. That's what they've wanted us to believe, that case law is common law. The truth, the real statement, is that the evidence of the common law may be found in our reports of the courts. But as we can see, and I have already showed this on the screen, the State versus Clark case. I've showed the New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin opinion, the opinions of the courts, and they're citing Blackstone. Number one source as the history of law of the rights. So, I mean, how do we sit here and say that it's not an authoritative source when the Supreme Court of the United States of America, state courts, they're all going to Blackstone's Commentaries on Laws of England as the number one source authority on the law? And then, look at American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 100 there. Under the observation there about mandatory language in the Constitution, that bills of rights and those merely declaratory of the common law and its provisions are mandatory and are to be considered as self-executing, meaning they need no further legislation to take effect. So that would also include declaration of rights. Because bills of rights are actually for kings. Declaration of rights is for sovereign. So when we say declaration of rights, that's laying down the law that is common to all. So that's the common law right there in your state declaration of rights. That's the common law. Yep. Commentaries, Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England, Book 1, or Book the First of the Rights of Persons, Chapter the First of the Absolute Rights of Individuals. You're saying page 116, page 117. Thank you, Wendy. But, oh, wow, I haven't seen Busy Bee buzzing in a while. I believe that's Scrimshot, if I remember correctly, which my memory does work pretty good for the most part sometimes. But this knowledge is power. If we're not reading this stuff and learning this stuff for ourselves, we have no power. We have to gain this knowledge. Oh, Sherry. That's right. I made a mistake. Sherry from Oklahoma. Well, that's fun. Been working and traveling. Yeah. But what else can I do? I'm reading this stuff, studying it for myself, and I'm bringing it forth. And I'm fighting on behalf of everybody, not just for myself, right? And this is the thing I keep trying to explain to people is like, you're already right there. Instead of trying to get your case dismissed for yourself, go a couple of steps further and do it for everybody else. If you're already knowledgeable enough to battle this out in court, keep going. Right? It's like, how do we stop at just, well, I'm just doing it for myself, and allowing them to continue to keep doing it to others. So, it's what we need to do, right? Hey, Doug, long time no see over there. You're a little late. I'm about ready to call it a night. Pretty beat myself, but still working on that remodeling the house, and in between working on paperwork and stuff for Mom, myself, and yeah, good times. But now I get to fire up my stuff on appeal, and then see what happens on appeal, and I need to file my own independent action. James, there's just the video out there where I spoke at the Idaho legislature back in, was that August of 2020? That 3-minute video where I addressed the legislature. Well, seriously sarcastic over here on Telegram. Have you ever been in an actual court? They're administrative tribunals, Nisi Prius, commercial kangaroo courts. No, they're all Roman civil law courts. They're not administrative. They're not tribunals or Nisi Prius, commercial kangaroo courts. They're all flat out Roman civil law courts. Plain and simple. They look at the judges. They're all wearing black robes. Symbolism. Roman Catholic Church. The code. Roman civil law. So, thank you, Amundsen. I'll definitely take all the prayers I can get, and any support that I can get, because again, this stuff's going to get kind of expensive. So but yeah, it's a little bit of a road ahead of me here on appeal, but thank you, Fix It Fast. Appreciate your comment there. Yeah, I'm doing what I can to try to educate my fellow man at the same time. Hoping that other people will pick up on this and learn and do something about it. You know, if you've got standing, you've got a right to a cause of action. If you've been subjected to any of this corruption, unlawful, serious human rights abuse, or corruption, you have standing. This motion, or not motion, pardon me, an independent action, a petition for declaratory judgment, injunctive relief, is how we do the constitutional challenges right now. So, uh, Trump has said many times that somebody ought to do something, or somebody ought to sue these people. I figured it out that that's what he's talking about. Doing the constitutional challenges and taking this stuff down. Oh, you're talking about the one where we were down there at the state capitol, and I stood up to the state troopers, and yeah, yeah, that was a big one. Yeah, kicking their butt all over the state capitol and standing toe to toe to the troopers as they're usurping their powers, acting under color of law, color of authority. Asking them about they taken an oath of office. None of them wanted to admit that they had taken an oath of office, and yeah. Yeah, a lot of people saw those ones. Man, I had that one when it was live. There was like over 500 people watching. I had looked down one time. I was like, "Holy crap! I got like over 500 people watching live right now." But that's me. I'm a stand-up kind of guy. I stand up for my fellow man. I guess that's part of what the Marine Corps actually instilled in me. Um, just can't stand to see my fellow man being um, trampled on. You know, I stood in front of him, in between uh, the both people there that were trying to be media and just on this side of the bar in the public area. So I tried, and they didn't want to commit battery on me, and they most certainly didn't want to deal with me, and they most certainly didn't want to put their hands on me later down the road. In fact, the one chief, whatever, sergeant, whatever, the one time was like, "No, leave him alone." And then they started messing with me again, and he turned around and said, "Look, I told you already once, leave him alone." They did not want to give me a right to a cause of action. But they all knew. A capital full of state police, city police, they all knew. Well, at least the ones in charge knew. Did not want to tangle with me. Didn't want to give me standing for a cause of action against them. So they left me alone. They'll pick on other people. Like Bundy. Bundy was arrested. Yep. And I tried. In fact, I was the last one in that room before Bundy was arrested, and I tried. And I seriously thought about sitting there with him. But I had to balance the scale there and let Ammon take the lead on that, but then he failed to defend himself. Right, Mark? Yeah, was going down the hallways there, and yeah, there was actually 3 different videos from that particular day. He did. James Ammon Bundy, he shunned me. He tried to throw me under the bus, and I mean, based on his own words, I'm going to throw you under the bus. You're the We the People event. And then he goes out into his vehicle out there and does a little live, calling me a communist, socialist, or whatever. And I'm just like, dude, the one man that actually has serious knowledge on the law and has a remedy that we could use through Congress, you don't want to listen to me. You don't want to work with me. No, because he's got to be the center of attention, and he's too prideful and arrogant. He can't humble himself to admit that somebody else might know something that he doesn't. And it would, in my mind, the psychology behind it is that I would steal his limelight, right? Because he wants the center stage. He wants to be in the limelight. Thank you, Rosalind. I see your comment out there. Thank you. But, some people are like that. So full of pride that, they'll just let things happen to them because of their pride. And now look what's happened. Lost his whole farm. They've taken everything from him. Right? We have the right to instruct our public servants. Absolutely. Yep, let's not forget Lavoy Finicum. They sure couldn't allow that man due process of law. They had to murder him. They had to murder him because anybody who watched any video footage from that, especially from inside the vehicle there, they were trying to kill everybody in that truck, in that vehicle. They had that was a setup. And right in a section of the highway there where there was no cell service, they originally stopped, right? Ammon Bundy and them, they stopped short of the roadblock. But that kind of messed things up because they didn't have their ability to kill him right there because they didn't have all their sharpshooters and everybody set up their snipers and stuff. So then they took a shot at Lavoy Finicum's truck, which that's why he drove off. So, which, I watched this stuff as close as I could at the time. So, I've also went and visited the actual site of where Lavoy Finicum was murdered. And I stood right there, in that same spot. And yeah, there was a little campground right there. That's where they were all staged, inside this campground. And then on both sides of the road, yep. I'm so glad God protected them inside that vehicle. Well over 100 plus bullet holes in that vehicle. All I can say is God protected him. Without God's protection, they should have all been dead. Yeah, well, I did see the drones and stuff, the drone footage, uh, but the way that the shots were fired and where they were coming from, no, that wasn't. Uh, I mean, they weren't armed drones shooting at them. Those were people, men. But that's typical of what government will do when they're starting to get questioned and brought into the limelight. And they were on their way to the sheriff in the next county over and going to seek asylum over there because that sheriff said that they would give him asylum. So couldn't let him make it there. Nope, couldn't do that. Yeah, I think it was more deep state FBI, but who knows for sure. Yeah, just like uh, Weaver, Rick, what was it? Rick Weaver, Ruby Ridge, his wife and his son, the dog. They tried to get him, but um, yeah, that's what we're facing. And you don't think that type of corruption. I mean, that's Randy Weaver. Thank you, Mark. Randy Weaver. That was here in Idaho. Um, that that level of corruption that they'll murder people like that. You don't think that needs to be taken down? Yeah, let's not forget my partner Christopher Hallett, and we were doing the peaceful thing. So, well, folks, thank you all for tuning in tonight, and I hope this was enjoyable for you tonight. Yep, let's not forget Waco, Texas. Yep. But hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we'll see you Wednesday night for Wednesday Night Workshop for those on Patreon.